This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. Since 2010, we've been broadcasting sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, we spotlight diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world. I invite you to listen and change how you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where we are talking about the connection crisis, decades of research on friendship and belonging. This is part 2 of a conversation with my guest, Dr. Niobe Way, who is a developmental psychologist whose research explores how cultural ideologies shape human connections in the United States and China. Through initiatives like the Project for the Advancement of Our Common Humanity, also known as PATCH, the Listening and Curiosity Project, and the Science of Human Connection Lab, Niobe works to counter the crisis of connection by cultivating relational intelligence in schools and communities. Her award-winning work has transformed the understanding of boys' friendships and informed national psychology guidelines. Her latest book is Rebels with a Cause, Reimagining Boys, Ourselves, and Our Culture. Niobe, it is always a pleasure to connect, and I'm so grateful we get to continue this conversation in part 2.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Boy, this is such a juicy conversation. We probably could go part 3 and 4 and 5 and 10.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about the antidote, because in the first segment, we talked about the crisis. You explained, where it comes from, and even distilled it down to American culture and how American culture has permeated into other cultures. So we've become the Ken and Barbies of wherever we're from. I want to address connection and how we can forge ahead with more healthy connections, how we can sort of undo or unravel some of the damage.
Yeah. So I want to say, I'm going to speak as an academic just for a second.
Do it.
The conversation. So one of the things from developmental science, and we don't rely on developmental science enough because we know a lot by studying children, we know a lot. So one of the things we know is that in order to have human connection, and I'll do an analysis right now, Lisa, in the way where you and I are talking, is we use cognitive skills, social skills, and emotional skills. So right this very second, we are using cognitive skills of perspective taking. You're trying to understand my perspective. I'm trying to understand yours. That's a skill. So we aren't born that way. Actually, in the early years, we acquire that. It's called also theory of mind, that we understand somebody else may think differently than ourselves. We get that around 3 and 4 years of age. And the idea is that it's a natural skill that we acquire in our first 5 years of life. It's a critical skill for social skills because human connection, because I need to understand that my perspective may not be your perspective. What we're finding in the data, I'll get to the social and emotional skills, but right now I'm just focused on the cognitive skills. What we're finding in the data is that we are actually declining in our capacity to take a perspective of somebody else. Isn't that stunning, Lisa?
That is stunning.
We are finding, this is a huge national data set, that our ability to take the other person's perspective is declining. So our cognitive skill that we're born with in the first 5 years of life, it's actually declining for the first time in the era in which we collect such data. And we've been collecting such data for a long time. It's actually declining. So that's cognitive skills that we need, and it's actually declining across the board, across the country. The second skill, I would say emotional. I'm just naming certain skills within each of these domains. Emotional skills, emotional regulation is a classic one. Lisa, when we're talking,
Oh, we're a mess.
Yeah,
We're a mess right now. That
but I'm
department.
trying to regulate because if I didn't regulate, because I'm very passionate about this topic, I wouldn't even make any sense, right? Because I would be starting to talk, in a way that couldn't be. It wasn't sort of making sense in a linear way. So I'm actually emotionally regulating in this conversation to be able to be articulate in a radio show. The third skill is a social skill, which is basically listening with curiosity. You're doing that more in this conversation than I'm doing, but we're both doing it to a certain degree of listening with curiosity. What do you think and feel and experience, and being curious about it rather than judgmental? So those three skills are necessary for human to human connection. So the first thing we have to do, this is now answers your question, to nurture those skills, nurture the skills of perspective taking, nurture the skills of not only emotional regulation, by the way, but emotional sensitivity. So if you started crying now, let's say I said something, Lisa, and you started to clearly get really emotional, and you were sort of like, your words were breaking. It's a radio show, right? So I would want to emotionally regulate my own feelings that I would feel really bad that you're upset, but also my sensitivity to sort of figure out how do I help you deal with this moment, right? Where you're on radio and you're showing that you're getting emotionally upset. So my point is that it's a skill. It's a skill. And we can teach it. We can foster that ability to be emotionally sensitive and emotionally regulated at the same time. Finally, the curiosity. We've been doing this for a decade in schools. You can so bring back our curiosity about each other. It's natural. We have it when we are 4 and 5 years old. You start to introduce it into the classroom. We've been doing it for 10 years in schools around the country, called our Listening with Curiosity Project. It's stunning how much you give permission to ask questions like, people always think it's going to be like inappropriate questions. This is what questions kids want people to ask them. What do you value? What do you care about? What's most meaningful to you? Why do you care about it? What kinds of things do you want to do in your life? And why do you want to do that? What friendship do you adore, and why do you adore them? I mean, all these basic questions, think about it, Lisa. We never ask each other. And we're starving for it. So go ahead.
Well, I think that we're starving for it because to be seen, heard, and understood is love. And because there's an absence of that loving kindness. You mentioned kindness before, but where is it right now? People are pissed.
No, exactly. But I'm just saying, perspective taking, emotional regulation, emotional sensitivity, and interpersonal curiosity are all forms of love.
Yes, and they can be taught. I mean, this is true.
But Lisa, I'm gonna push back on that. They're natural. They can be nourished, not taught, because we have them when we're 4 and 5. We have those skills. We're naturally able to do that. You see it in pre-K classrooms. It's that we don't nourish it. So then we struggle to do it when we get older because ultimately it hasn't been nourished.
It hasn't been nourished, and it hasn't been modeled in the home. When you have a culture, right? When the culture is saying, myself, and I'm in it for what I can get. My neighbor doesn't matter. The fact that they might be starving, it's none of my business. Well, the fact is, if your neighbor's starving, it is your business, both morally and practically.
Yeah, exactly. And not even starving if, care about people around you.
Yeah.
I mean, just care about people around you and not necessarily people say, well, that's nosy. It's not nosy to care about, well, what do you care about, Lisa? You're my neighbor. What do you care about? What's important to you? I mean, all these things, it's just amazing to me. So apparently in a Harvard study, only 17% of those under 30 feel meaningfully connected to at least one person. Only 17%.
Wow.
And
that's
so
sad.
So when you talk to people, there's so much, not only isolation, but so many people, as you say, are not feeling seen, heard, valued, in this conversation. And all it takes is actually caring about your perspective taking, being sensitive to each other's thoughts and feelings. And fundamentally, I'm even going to push this even harder than I normally do. Curiosity. I mean, curious about what you think, feel, and experience, not just sharing what you think, feel, and experience. And we even think, Lisa, we're so messed up at this point. We think connection is just me sharing my experience and then you sharing your experience.
Like parallel play.
Lisa, that's literally what I call it. Yeah. I literally call it that. I say it's parallel play.
Yeah.
It's so funny you said that before I did. And it's parallel play. And the idea is that's not connection, but we actually think it's connection. We think that if I share about my divorce, Lisa, somehow you're going to be connected to me. It won't be unless you start to become curious about my experience and then I start to become curious about your experience.
Niobe, I want to share something that happened yesterday because it just illustrates this so beautifully. Wow. Our HVAC system went out. And we called for service and we were like, no, it's not an emergency. It's fine because we didn't want to pay the emergency visit. But the guy came out. And the guy that came to visit us has been here every couple of years. He comes to service the system and he's from Jamaica. And I was carrying a bag of ice into the house and he goes, oh my God, don't get me started about ice. And I'm like, why? Because it's cold out? And he goes, no, I was arrested and I was by ICE and I was in prison for 2 months. And he proceeded to tell the story. I'm like, can I make you some tea? Can we sit down? Can we have a conversation? And we did. And it was so incredible. And here's what he said. He told me the story. He said how it affected him. He thought he was going to die. He is legal. He had all of his papers. And it cost him a fortune. He finally got out. He has a family and a wife that he was disconnected from for 2 months. After he told the story, he goes, it felt so good to tell you about what happened.
Yeah.
So I think this illustrates what you're saying.
Yeah. And really what formed the connection, the reason it felt good, which he might not be able to recognize because we often don't recognize, is that you were actually curious about it.
About every minute of it.
Right. So, and that's what forms the connection. And then it would have even been a deeper relationship if you had built, right. If then he, in some ways, when it goes back and forth, it then becomes a real friendship.
Yes.
But at some level, what made him feel good, it's not just that he got to tell his story. That's the modern culture version of what happened. No, it was that you were curious in his story, and then he got to tell it in response to your curiosity. That's what made him feel seen and heard.
And remorse.
Exactly.
I said, I am so sorry that this country did this to you. You didn't deserve that. It was his eyes lit up, I think this is what we're talking about, that unless we can put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, which is really true empathy, right? Like we suspend our own perspective taking for the moment and try and have the other's perspective. Yeah. This is part of the medicine.
Yeah, but I would say, again, I'm going to emphasize the curiosity because sometimes what we do, my students say they don't like empathy because empathy they think is sort of has been corporatized, and that oftentimes people assume they know your feelings when they don't know your feelings. So I would say what was magical about that moment, Lisa, for you with your the person who had this horrific experience is it was your curiosity that then led him to want to tell a story, and your interest in him that made him feel seen. And if you had just said, when he had said, I was with ICE and they arrested me and I was in jail for 2 months and that's it, right? That's all he had said. And you had said, oh my God, that's awful. That's absolutely awful. That's terrible. He would not have felt as seen. He would not have felt as seen. So the idea is that if you had just assumed, even if you had just said, I was arrested by ICE and you said, oh my God, that's horrible. He wouldn't have had the same reaction. It was your curiosity that wanted to know what happened. That actually people call that nosy. It's not nosy. When you do that, it actually allows someone to explain their experience. Yeah. That's what we're starving for. Someone asked me about the details of things that happened to me. Good things and bad, not just bad things, by the way, good things too.
Well, and I asked him, how have you been dealing with it? Like what in the aftermath of this, because you're back at work.
That's your curiosity.
Right?
That's your curiosity. Yeah.
And he said, well, I realized like everybody's got a story and this is a really good one. It was amazing. We had a big laugh about it. He goes, thankfully it had an okay outcome. It could have gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
But there was something else I wanted to ask you. And, we probably need to take a break. Let's take a break and we'll come
Okay.
back. And then I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you about something that popped into my mind as you were talking. Hang on. To learn more about the work of the fabulous Niobe Way, please go to niobe-way.com. You can find her on Facebook at niobe.way and on LinkedIn at Niobe Way. Here comes that pause. I'll be right back. Harvesting Happiness is rooted in science. Our work facilitates applied positive psychology practices through media and consulting. We're committed to sound ideas for better well-being, leading to increased life satisfaction and a better world for everyone. We're not into pseudoscience or quick fixes. We're focused on common sense backed by rigorous research. Healthy critical thinking is the foundation for our discussions. We encourage you to challenge preconceptions and explore ideas with a curiously discerning mind. Collaboration with our guests is united by an inclusive vision to boost resilience, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving through civilized discourse and pleasurable relational engagement for everyone. Each day, we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstances. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please seek support because good psychological health is vital to the achievement of a healthy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial and educational services that boost emotional and social intelligence. And we're back, continuing the conversation with Dr. Niobe Way. We're talking about the connection crisis, decades of research on friendship and belonging. Let's get back to it. So, Niobe, the question I wanted to ask you is, do you feel in some way, or does your research tell us that the inability to delay gratification is part of the story?
I would say, it's funny, I don't know where that question comes from, but I would say that all those things that we see that's not great are symptoms of an antisocial culture. So I would blame it on the culture. And so even depression, loneliness, bad behavior, violence are all symptoms. And so I would say the lack of delay of gratification is a symptom of, by the way, an antisocial culture is deeply capitalist, right? It's a capitalist culture. It's a patriarchal culture. It's a white supremacist culture. So the idea is that creates a culture in which what I need now, which is an inability to delay gratification. So I would say all those things are symptoms. But when we get caught up in, this is my argument based on the data, when we get caught up in focusing on symptoms rather than the root of it, we get lost in the conversation. So when we call it a mental health crisis, it's not a mental health crisis. It's a social health crisis that then leads to mental health crisis. And the social health crisis is because we live in an antisocial culture.
I think this is you hit the nail on the head. The social health crisis. I never looked at it that way. And what made me think of the marshmallow was the videos, the marshmallow experiment of the kids sitting down, being told that if you're able to wait at the end of the waiting, you'll be able to get 2 marshmallows instead of 1.
Yeah. And that's a complicated experiment. It's a very classic experiment. But that's a classic experience because if you think that it's likely that you will get the marshmallow, you're more willing to wait. If you think that whatever the adult is saying will not likely give you the marshmallow, even if you wait, which a lot of children experience, that adults basically fail them, that they don't actually get the prize they were told to do if they do certain behaviors, they're going to be less willing to wait. So to me, that experiment is problematic in the sense that it's, your delay of gratification is be depending on your experience of getting what you were told you were going to get if you did good behavior. And,
good point.
And unfortunately, most of us grow up in contexts where it's not reliable that you will get, what you were supposed to get if you do something else. And many of us have experienced that. We're like, well, I was supposed to get this, and then it didn't happen, and I did the right things, but it didn't happen. So then it's about I need to get it now, because if I don't get it now, right? If you get it instead, then I'm not going to get it, and so I need to get it now.
And is this the disappointment of the great American experiment of not getting a piece of the dream?
Well, again, I would say, fundamentally, I'm going to go back to the culture because it really is, I really want to blame it. If a
On
culture
us.
values, right? If a culture values certain humans over others, right? If they
Yes.
say rich people are more worthy of paying attention to than poor people, if men are more smarter than women, and white people are more talented as leaders than people of color. If you live in such a world where, and then also thinking is more important than feeling, autonomy more than connectedness, stoicism more than vulnerability. If you live in such a world, that is going to create craziness. And
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing now is craziness. So that we're all suffering to different degrees. We are all suffering to different degrees, and ultimately acting poorly through our suffering. And what I was going to say before, it was why we keep on getting worse. I didn't answer that question actually, is because we're not understanding that it's the waters in which we swim. The problem is not just the Trump supporters or Trump or
No.
that whatever group we're going to pick on, even the manosphere. It's not the manosphere. It's a culture that actually has produced the manosphere, that has produced Trump. That's the problem. And the good news is, to not sound so cynical, Lisa, the good news is that we were born with the skills to create a pro-social culture. We were born with the skills. So it just means nourishing those skills in our homes, in our workplaces, in our schools, which we've been doing in schools now for decades. And then you begin to actually create a pro-social culture in schools, in homes, in workplaces. And we can do it because we're born with the skills. We don't need to teach it. We just need to nurture it.
Well, you look at countries like I spent some time in Norway a couple of years ago, and
Mm.
I was so impressed with just society, like the way it operated, the way it flowed, the kinds of courtesy and curiosity that people have towards one another, and a
Yeah.
genuine caring for community and people who have come from other places, who have immigrated there, who have been given really a holistic chance at starting their lives over and welcomed into the community. That's not to say it doesn't have its problems. Every country has its problems.
Yeah.
But is it seemingly harder to do here because we're so large than in a place like Norway or Denmark or Sweden
Well,
or Finland?
I would say because you're seeing the crisis of connection around the world, even in those countries, you're starting to see mass violence in countries that we typically don't associate with mass.
Sweden. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sweden. That I would say in some sense it's harder to do, but at some sense, because we're larger, but at some sense, the demand, because young people are trying to insist on creating a pro-social culture. They're the truth tellers in our
Yes.
culture. That we're already starting to shift. So changing the culture is not so hard. First of all, we change the culture all the time. I mean, we had Obama, then we had, right. I mean, we've changed the culture repeatedly in the last 25 years. So it's not hard to change. But mainly, we're already changing. I mean, we're now having many articles, many discussions about male friendships. I wrote about
Yes.
it 15 years ago, and now people are wanting to interview me still every week around male friendships. We didn't have those conversations, 20 years ago. So we're starting to already change because it's natural to us to actually want each other. And ironically, I'm going to say something that's a little bit complicated, but ironically, it's like when you're an alcoholic, you have to be able to get to the bottom of the barrel to realize, right, to change.
Feels like we're
I mean,
there.
right. And so because we are, I hope at least it's the bottom of the barrel. I hope it doesn't get worse. But we're at the bottom of the barrel at this point. And so there's actually more hunger for what I'm talking about, this message I'm giving you, Lisa. There's much more hunger for it than there ever has been in my career. And so now I'm being interviewed all the time now because people are hungry to hear this
This is
because they know
hopeful.
it's intuitive, right?
Yeah.
It's intuitive. It's intuitive. And so people hear it and they're like, my God, of course, of course. If we only value thinking and we don't value feeling and we give a gender identity to core human capacities, we're going to have a problem. And so you're starting to get parents and CEOs and all sorts of people starting to sort of understand the nature of the problem. And then it's so easy to change because it's going back to our human nature, our human nature.
Yes. It's like the factory setting.
Yeah.
Hitting the
Oh,
reset, right? Like we're
oh,
going.
totally. And it's easy to go there because it's so obvious,
Yeah.
Lisa. It's so obvious that if we just value the me, we don't have good relationships. It's just so
No.
obvious. And so to me, changing the culture sounds big, but it's not. It's already happening. It's already happening. We just have to have more podcasts like yours, that gives the message that normalizes that it's not just your weird kid that is determined. The only thing they want is friendships. It's everybody. Everybody only wants friendships. Everybody does. And it could be friendships within a marriage or whatever, or with your mom or with your dad. I don't mean necessarily peers, but everybody wants friendships. That's the only thing everybody wants.
Well, because we all want a witness to our life. Like we need somebody to bear witness to what each of us is doing here.
Yeah, exactly. And also for someone to care for too.
Yes.
We learn from others. We want to learn from others. We want to learn about ourselves through others. I mean, the whole thing is that we are fascinated with that 5-year-old sense of wonder that we look at each other and say, why? That's who we are naturally. To look at each other with wonder and say, why do you do that? And why do you not do this? And why do you like that? And, all the questions that your 5-year-old always asks you. That's how we're born. And then we grow up in an antisocial culture and we lose it. And then we wonder why we're disconnected. So it's really going back to creating a culture that better nourishes our nature. And that's easy to do because it's our nature.
Niobe, in addition to the crisis of connection, I think there's also something about the crisis in our ability to care, and that we need to make a better campaign for the cause for caring that so many of us might be feeling. If we reach across the divide, we somehow will risk being cast out of our tribe. Does that resonate in any way to you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it made me think, I just thought of this right now while you were talking, is that when I say rebels with a cause for my title of my latest book, the cause, the essential cause that boys have been asking us to do is to care about them, to care about each other, that their cause, literally that's what the cause is in the rebel. And Rebels with the Cause, based on 40 years of research, summarizing what I've learned from thousands of young people over 40 years. And their cause, that what they're asking us, the adults, is to care. And we're not caring. We're not caring about them. We're not caring about each other. We're not caring about ourselves. And it is true that in a culture that doesn't care, because that's what young people have been saying for almost a century, we don't care. In a culture that doesn't care, caring can feel risky because caring can make you feel vulnerable and you're worried about rejection if you care because you're not supposed to care. In fact, it's cool not to care.
Indifference is fashionable.
Right. It's fashionable. So it's I don't care. Is it, whatever.
Yeah.
And whatever comes into our culture about the 1980s, right during Reaganomics, you get the expression whatever. And now you even have adults saying it all the time. I sometimes say it, unfortunately, too. And whatever is a classic, I'm going to try to look like I don't really care, whatever. When in fact we all care deeply, but we get all these. I don't know if you remember the coat that Melania Trump was wearing.
Yes, I do.
Said, I don't care. I don't care, and we really are.
I don't care. Do you?
Yeah, do you?
Do you?
And so the whole pose, and that's a masculine pose, by the way. That's a valuing the hard over the soft. Not caring is the essence of being hard, right? And it's valuing the hard. So caring is being soft and lame and pathetic. And so we're afraid of the caring part because we're afraid of our soft sides because nobody wants to be seen as lame and pathetic. So to me, it goes back once again to once you put care on the bottom of the hierarchy and not care at the top of the hierarchy, you're going to have problems with people actually expressing care, similar to emotional sensitivity. Why would you do it if it's considered lame to do? So I would say there's a fear about it. But really, the fear comes from, once again, that we fundamentally think that the mature way to handle things is to not care, is to not feel, is to sort of be stoic in this not caring way. And that's crazy.
It's crazy. It doesn't work ultimately. It will not solve our problems. But there's a costliness to this, right? And a callousness to it. And if you were to blindfold somebody and just say, listen to me describe these circumstances, and you describe the circumstances who somebody is living that is way less fortunate than you or me or the next person, they would say, that sounds horrible, right? Because it's neutral. There's no connection to it. but you
Yeah.
take the eye covers off and they see that it's their neighbor, and suddenly that person has no value.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I would even say, even in the midst of, I mean, just even thinking about, not even thinking about with people with, neighbors, et cetera, just within the family. I mean,
Oh, certainly within the family. I mean, I have it in my family where we've
yeah,
got, sort of the war of the roses, and it's
yeah.
ridiculous,
Yeah, yeah. And but I'm just saying, even when we do this, and I've done this, I mean, in terms of deciding to live apart from all of my family members, not intentionally, just where the job was. But the point is that notion, we started with industrialization, where
Yeah.
we started to privilege, where we could get a decent paying job over finding things in our communities or whatever it is, and moving. We didn't value staying connected to our families. So the whole point is that it's so embedded in our culture that caring is sort of on the lowest end of what we should be valuing. We should be valuing things, and I'll speak to the elite. We should be valuing getting into Harvard or whatever it is, and then getting a high-paying job and being successful and having a lot of money and having a lot of toys. I mean, that's a capitalist. We live in a capitalist society. Caring is just girly. And we think girly things are just not valuable. I mean, it really comes from, that's a patriarchal idea, is that girly things are not valuable.
And yet, let's talk about the corporate world. Corporations that do care, that clearly prioritize caring and well-being of their team members, end up with exponentially greater ROIs and bottom lines than the other companies.
Yeah, that's always the data.
Yeah.
When you actually value caring and also stoicism and also vulnerability, when you actually value autonomy and connectedness, thinking and feeling, caring, and then sometimes not being caring because it's important not to care. So the
disruptor, when someone's being an intentional disruptor, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And so the idea is, and sometimes it's necessary to be angry, and sometimes it's necessary to forgive. So the idea is that you're not privileging either side, and that's when leaders are like that. They always have employees that are happy, that are right. I mean, that want to stay at the job. It's interesting. I just saw a new finding that was really interesting to me. So leaders, employers oftentimes think that giving a raise is what people really want. And apparently, according to a nationwide data, that people would prefer a boss that is socially, emotionally, relationally skilled over getting a raise.
Yeah.
They say they would prefer, and obviously we're talking not people that are making, minimum wage. They'd rather a raise. But I'm just saying people in a sort of middle class income and above would rather an employer that was sort of relationally skilled at the workplace in terms of building relationships than getting a raise. And to me, that's exactly your point.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes to being seen.
Yeah.
Right. It goes to your point. Actually, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think it's I just want to keep it always relational, and it's being seen, but it's also how much my father said. I told this to my class this morning. My father said when I was 18, I said I was interested in American teenagers, and he said, well, if you're interested in American teenagers, you should go live in China. And his point was, you can't see yourself until you see something different. Because if you just see yourself, you're not able to see yourself. So that whole notion that when you actually engage with someone and are curious about them, especially someone who may be different from you actually see yourself more. You see yourself more. You don't just see them, you see yourself more in the difference. When you only talk to people who are exactly like you are actually less able to see yourself. Because you just see a reflection of yourself, you're not able to see yourself, right? So to me, it's really a call to say we're hungry as social animals to learn from each other, so that we learn about them, but we also learn about ourselves from that conversation.
Your dad was wise.
Yeah. No, I always remember that. It was a long time ago. But I remember when he said it. I remember exactly when he said it, because it was such a profound insight to me.
And you did. You went to go live in China.
I know. I went to go in China. Exactly.
Niobe, we probably need to have more conversations, figure out some other angles to this, because I think there's so much here that it's like brain food that people we can share ideas and hopefully inspire people to have conversations on their own and ask questions and be curious and to care more. Right.
Yeah. I agree. I love having this conversation. Thank you, Lisa. This was really fantastic.
Niobe Way. To learn more, let me give the plug again. Please go to niobe-way.com. You can find her on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. We've been talking about rebels with a cause, reimagining boys, ourselves, and our culture, and we'll do more. Niobe, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Don't forget to have a listen to part 1 of this conversation, Beyond Toxic Masculinity, on boys, friendship, and mental health. Thanks for joining us on today's show. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of Niobe Way, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day and remember to be kind to one another. Want to explore more sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the excellent team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.